I'm the newly minted executive director of Hartford Preservation Alliance. And when most of us think of historic preservation, we think generally of the blue hairs in cities who want to preserve and protect all those pretty buildings. I come to HPA with the whole idea that I think it's incredibly important that we make historic preservation the keystone of community economic development. On Wednesday, I attended an open house which was celebrating the renovation of two buildings on Walcott Street. And for those of you who do or don't know the city, Walcott Street runs into Ward Street runs into Park Street. So it's about 3 blocks away from Washington Street. This was a project that was done by SINA, the Southside Institute of Neighborhood Development. I'm sorry, I got it wrong. But anyway, the point is these were two buildings that have been renovated. They were built in the 1860s. It's a very exciting project from the standpoint that when you think about it, these were buildings that were built at the time that Abraham Lincoln was visiting the city. I mean, it's really very exciting to realize that these two buildings are rejoining the fabric of the city. At that opening, if you will, the mayor spoke of, as did the president of Trinity College, the head of the Children's Medical Center, and also a representative from Hartford Hospital. Everyone talked about the fact that these walls had ears that listened to things that occurred in the 1800s in Hartford. And here they are being recreated. But what's most exciting about this is because of the way the financing was put together, these two buildings are going to be 4 units. And in these 4 units, there will be not only an opportunity to purchase a 2-bedroom unit, but then there will also be an auxiliary unit on the ground floor, which will help contribute to making the units affordable to families that will be medium or low income housing. So it's the fact that we're using historic rehabilitation that's going to contribute to neighborhood fabric. One of the statistics that I find interesting, I've been away from Hartford for 20 years. I refer to myself as Rip Van Winkle. I've been asleep for 20 years. I come from a city where home ownership rate is in excess of 80%. I come to Hartford and am quite shocked and very surprised to find out that, in point of fact, in Hartford it's less than 20%. I think that there is really a significant opportunity for us to take historic preservation, melding that with community economic development in order to create these kinds of homeownership opportunities. I think we really need to focus on that because that is one of the ways we can strengthen communities. In coming back to Hartford, I am now referring to myself as an unrepentant cheerleader for the city. In our breakout session earlier, one of the things we chuckled about was a statement that I feel safe living in Hartford. I can't tell you how many old friends and old acquaintances are saying, gosh, you're going to live in Hartford? Well, I represent the Hartford Preservation Alliance. Where would you suggest I live? Aside from that, when I was here prior, I lived for 15 years on Columbia Street, which is off Capitol Avenue. Some of you may know it. Victorian row houses, dead-end street, one of the best neighborhoods I've ever lived in my life. I redid 3 houses on the street. What we need to be working on is, and again, from a preservation standpoint, the city has some 22,000 historic buildings. What we need to do is to be focused on that history, that fabric, which needs to be promoted, redone, and used as a way for the past to project to the future. It's critically important for us as preservationists, and by the way, I talk of myself as being a dumb developer rather than a preservationist, because we need to, the Preservation Alliance needs to help folks understand how they can participate, how they can become a catalyst in attracting the kinds of development, redevelopment that we think is important. David, and now Frank, David and David made some excellent points about the future for the city. Preservation, I think, is an important component for making the city even more attractive. We don't do well if we are knocking down buildings and creating holes in the ground or surface parking lots and not recreating what we already have. One of the things that I have learned about, and hopefully we're going to be playing a significant role in this, is preservation usually is known as, oh, let's do walking tours. So forgive me if any of you are from outside Hartford, but it's very nice for us to bring the good people of Simsbury into Hartford and look at various different things. What I think is critically important and far more important for us to be playing a leadership role in is to encourage folks who are living in various communities in the city to once again take a look at themselves and say, gosh, I live here. Why do I live here? I want to tour the neighborhood in which I live. And I think we're going to get an opportunity very shortly to do that on Asylum Hill. But what we need to do is to generate walking tours for people who live in the city, and then to be able to sit down and have a conversation of why. Why do we live where we live? And from that, hopefully, be able to expand the conversation and let's think about and map out future development for our community. What is going to be acceptable? What do we want to see? What's important for us to help guide? In other words, if anybody's going to be bringing money into the city or a particular neighborhood, I think it's incredibly important for us to be able to say, here is our general master plan, and we want you to contribute to it, but these are the ideas that we have. I was over Avon Mountain. Every now and again, I was visiting an old friend, and I said, this is my fresh air fund. Yesterday afternoon, and I was trying to find something, Starbucks. Anyway, and I stopped, because I didn't have any idea where it was, and I stopped and asked a woman if she could tell me where the Starbucks was, and she said, gosh, I can't. I am West Hartford. Well, I think it's critically important for all of us to start getting to a point where we say, I am Hartford. It's really very important for us to be doing this. So I just want to make that point. I'll stop there for a second. One of the other things that I want to point out, which I think is critically important for historic preservation, is to deal with the economics. You've been staring at this, so you can all, I won't give you a test, but you can all see clearly what is being suggested here, and that is dollars spent on historic preservation return on, for every $100 are returning $83 to the pockets of people who are working on historic preservation. Not only is this a high percentage of dollars that are going into the pockets of workers, but we in the preservation field need to be able to encourage job creation. Jobs are, what is it, Ford says our jobs are number one or something. This is exactly what we need to be working on. Historic preservation has every bit of a contribution to make in the economic well-being of this city. We need to be a leader in this. And by the way, these are skilled jobs. These are jobs that are important. These are not just labor, but when you think in terms of work that's being done on historic buildings, it needs craftsmen. So these are actually pretty good jobs. I'm not going to get into this, but Connecticut is unique, and wonderfully so, in that we have a residence or homeowner tax credit. If your properties are in historic districts or deemed historic, you have an ability to generate funds to help you renovate and redo your houses. And I don't need to go into it really at length, but the point is, with the introduction in 2006 of this tax credit, the economic activity in the state just spiked. It's very exciting. We in the Hartford Preservation Alliance hope to be playing a very significant strategic role in matching those dollars to homeowners and making it easier for people to access that kind of money. I would suggest to you, this is too much to read, but historic preservation makes a significant contribution to the overall economic well-being in cities, the state overall, but specifically in cities. A report was commissioned by the State Historic Preservation Office, and you can find that if you go to the State Historic Preservation website, or I guess you go through Connecticut, and you will ultimately find this. But the contributions that historic preservation are making to the overall economy, and when you think in terms of Hartford, for Pete's sakes, you're talking about increasing values, increasing the tax base, ultimately increasing revenue for the city, so maybe we can make ends meet. Very important things. But again, I have to hark back to the fact that we want to be all about economic opportunity and specifically employment. I think this is critically important for us. And thank you.